do not plead guilty. Because they want you to plead guilty and then they bang you up.
Deep down inside, we all know abortion's wrong. We all know it. I came to the conclusion it's because we've turned into a different version of Yugoslavia. Everyone's called Hitler every day. I've got 19 posts on Twitter today where I'm Hitler. That is not incitement to violence. That's not asking for the murder of the Prime Minister.
Can I just say, Nick, I didn't even know they were paid any money. Why would prisoners be paid money anyway?
For some of the work they do in the prison. But
just make them do the work anyway.
We'll talk about it in a minute. I've got ideas on that.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you are founders, welcome to the Resistance. And welcome to the Mayor and I, episode 80.
80, can you imagine that?
80. Yeah, I feel like I started it when I was about 20. A weekly review where we talk about all things important and unimportant with myself, Lindsay Khan, who is I, and the Mayor, Nick Buckley, MBE. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you.
And if you like what you see on this, ladies and gentlemen, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, most importantly subscribe, and buy a coffee, or more importantly buy England by Nick Buckley, which is his best-selling blockbuster novel.
Best-selling, still selling, is doing exceptionally well. Yep. And the comments, really good on Amazon about the book. Really good.
And we're talking thousands of copies. So thousands, which is really excellent. We've covered quite a lot of stuff in a previous episode. We've caught up with stuff that we missed in previous episodes as well. I'd like to jump straight into something this week, which I think is very relevant given one of your contacts has been involved in this recently. And this we're going to talk about two-tier government, two-tier cops and free speech. So I want to talk about, first of all, a chap called Jamie Michael, who's a soldier. And during the Southport riots, he put a video out there. And it was called "This Is What I Think." And basically, it was a polemic from him talking about immigration being out of control, saying the UK was under attack, and he was charged with stirring up racial hatred using a recording under the Public Order Act 1986. Which actually, Nick, and the reason this is relevant is this is what arguably we are doing now, isn't it? Not stirring up racial hatred, but we're doing a recording under the Public Order Act. He was put in jail for 17 days. Luckily, he was a member of the Free Speech Union, and the Free Speech Union asked him to plead not guilty. He pleaded not guilty, and he was found, which is a massive thing, not guilty in 17 minutes by a jury.
Yeah.
So is this a shift now in what's happening?
It's a good case, and it's a great result, and it's a shocking that he was ever arrested, because his video, he said, if you I'm paraphrasing now, he basically said, if you're sick of immigration, now's the time to go on the streets and demonstrate, but of course peacefully, demonstrate peacefully. He emphasised the point to demonstrate peacefully. And they arrested him and locked him up and tried to prosecute him. Did prosecute him, but he was found not guilty. Disgraceful. Yeah,
and what he did, folks, just so I think is relevant, is he pleaded not guilty. Yeah. And what Toby Young of the Free Speech Union says, and lots of other people have said to me as well, if you are arrested, and this is advice for you as well, Nick, I think, do not plead guilty. Yeah. Because they want you to plead guilty and then they bang you up. And all the people who I call political prisoners who were arrested during the Southport riots were tricked into pleading guilty, and as a result they didn't get an opportunity, and they were then detained and put on actual sentences where I can't remember what it's called now.
If you're not guilty, then plead not guilty. Do not admit to an offence you didn't do, even if it looks like you'll do less time. That you're taking a hit to your reputation. You'll never be treated the same again because you pleaded guilty to this. But do you know what? I didn't really do it. Well, what do you mean you didn't do it? You stood in a court of law and you pled guilty. Of course you're guilty. I'm glad the Sotman is a soldier. You know, he's braver than most of us. I'm glad he stuck to his guns. And yeah, he was found innocent in 17 minutes.
Yeah, and I think that's an example and a lead for us now when they try and take your freedom, guys. You know, don't just try and fight it. Martin Frost, who I know you're going to talk about in a minute because I know you've been involved in assisting him, Nick, He burnt the Quran in Manchester, tried to burn the Quran in Manchester. He was arrested, and this is what turned you on the police. Cause I think you realise that your eyes opened for the first time in the year or so we've been doing this, and I think you realise that the police are now, somebody who acts against our interests, basically. Yeah. He lost his daughter in the Israeli-Hamas conflict, apparently, Martin. A passerby complained of distress as a result of him doing this. And interestingly, the Greater Manchester Police, the ones who arrest him as a result of this is the same force that ignored a 12-year-old distressed girl who turned up at a police station after being gang raped by a Pakistani rape gang, and the police turned her away.
Yeah.
That's what I call two-tier.
And that's why we have the phrase two-tier, as in certain victims are treated well, certain victims are not treated well. Certain criminals are treated better than other criminals.
Yeah.
There's crimes that are committed, there's incidents that are committed that they deem a crime if some people do it, but not a crime if other people do it. It's the whole system is a 2, 3, 4, 5 tier system, and it's absolutely shocking.
It stinks. So if a brown person who was walking past Martin Frost, who's basically not committing a crime by burning the Quran, if he wants to burn his own book, that's up to him.
Yeah.
Because a brown person walks past and says, "I'm distressed," Martin Frost is then arrested.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, Martin pled guilty, so it's the Free Speech Union can't help him. So a brown person claims a distress, then the guy is arrested and prosecuted. If it's a 12-year-old white girl who turns up at a police station in tears after being raped, she's told to piss off.
Yeah, and if you're Martin Frost, what the police will also do to make sure me and you don't go burn the Quran in the city centre is they then release his name and address.
Yeah.
So it's name, date of birth and the area he lives in.
Correct.
If that isn't potentially signing his death warrant for some Islamic nutcase, which we've just talked about in the last episode, to come along and kill him, then I don't know what is.
Well, and for anybody who might say, oh, well, that's just something they have to do, they may be interested to know that the Manchester Airport brothers, the ones who smashed up the cop and punched that woman in the no broken nose, they were not named.
Yeah.
The Roma family, who had, in Hare Hills, where I was born, who had 4 children taken away from them because of abuse issues or whatever, were also not named as well. So this is not like, oh, well, all criminals are named. They specifically chose, in this case, to name him knowing the impact that would have on that situation. And I think even more weird, and I don't know if you've even noticed this or commented, but I saw it written and commented on by somebody. In fact, somebody I think was commenting on our comments. The 2 guys who actually moved in to arrest Martin were Asian. Did you know that?
Yeah, I saw the video.
And is that like a little sign? A little kind of, we'll show you, you can't do things that offend our Muslim brothers because we'll send some Muslims in to sort you out, mate. Is that what that's about?
We have no idea if those officers were Muslims. You can't tell if they're brown, if they're Muslim.
Yeah.
And I would doubt it. It would be, there was plenty of officers there. Some of them were white. And it's just one of those things.
We are seeing more and more now very, very clear cases of political prisoners of the government. There's another example. I'll move on to it. And there's the final one I'm going to talk about is far more relevant. A lady called Livia Tosiki Bolt, a 63-year-old woman, former scientist, so this is a credible, middle-class woman, stood within what's called a buffer zone around an abortion thing, and she had a sign. I've seen the sign. It's a nice little sign. It just says, "Here to talk if you want to." She stood there silently holding that sign and has been arrested and is going to court.
That is a mild case of this. People have been arrested for stood outside near abortion centres, saying nothing, holding nothing, and praying in their head. And police are going up to them, "What are you doing?" "I'm praying in my head." Right, that's against the law, you're arrested. We're so addicted to killing unborn babies that we don't want anyone interfering with the practice. So if we've got a woman going to murder her baby in her womb and there's people stood outside trying to talk her out of it, well, the state doesn't want that to happen. So therefore no one's allowed to do it. I'm for stopping the protests outside abortion clinics. Gangs of people turning up, causing problems. In America, some abortion clinics have been blown up. I don't want that type of protest, but we have the right to protest in this country, and we have the right to talk to people who are about to make a life-changing decision, that they're about to terminate the life of their child. If that's not a time where people need to be spoken to or have an option to be spoken to, then I don't know what we're doing.
I think for me the issue is not, and I think you and I have often talked about pro-choice, pro-life, or whatever it might be, and I'm still not decided on that issue after being brainwashed for decades in one particular direction. But I do now listen to both points of the argument. I think the point here is this dislocation between the ability for people who are opposed to it to put their case forward, to argue or whatever, and the unfettered right of people who are pro-abortion to say what they like, the hell they like. I don't understand how that is fair, because it's kind of, that is so partisan. It just does. It's kind of, and again, it's this concept that the left have of certain things being right, and we love liberty and freedom and all that sort of stuff, unless you don't agree with us.
Yeah. You only have to enforce things that are morally wrong.
Yes.
If it was morally right, you wouldn't have to enforce it, because people naturally would be inclined towards it, depending what society you're in and depending what we're talking about. But deep down inside, we all know abortion's wrong. We all know it. We may say, but it's an acceptable evil, or there might be times where it's the least evil choice. There's all different ways of looking at it, but deep down inside, we all know it's wrong.
One of our viewers, our gentle listeners, is called @JMark. He's an ex-copper. He describes himself as an ex-copper. He describes it because he's so far away from it now. But he describes our police force now as an army of occupation. That's what he believes them to be. And he said, and he knows this because he's worked in the police. He says, the police now feel the public are there for their fun, to be abused and to be mocked. So they don't now regard the public as somebody they're there to protect. They regard them as an object of ridicule, somebody that they can mock. And it's interesting because I always get that sense whenever a copper talks to me, or if you do something wrong, they come over, they have a very condescending, patronising tone to you, and will not treat you with civility. And I think his observation there is spot on.
I've got a slightly different version of that. I wrote an article this week that sort of touches on this. It was about why are the police doing what the police are doing, and I came to the conclusion it's because we've turned into a different version of Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia, for people who don't know, it was a European country. It's now Bosnia, Croatia, all those 6-7 countries down there were called Yugoslavia. It was a multicultural hellhole. That was where the Islamic invasion stopped 1,000 years ago. So the Christians and Muslims didn't get along. The Bosnians didn't like the Serbs because they'd had wars for thousands of years. And the only way you could control that country was with an iron fist. And at the end of the Second World War, when the country was created, it was General Tito, a communist dictator, ran that country with an iron fist. And it was peaceful because everybody was more scared of him than they were of their neighbours. When he died, and I think he died, well, whenever he went, it slowly deteriorated. And then in the 90s, we had the Bosnian Civil War, which was the reopening of all the old wounds over 1,000 years. And that's what we have in this country now, as in we have a multicultural hellhole. And the only way we can stop the Muslim and Jews killing each other, and the Pakistanis and the Indians killing each other, because they've always hated each other, and how do we stop the persecution of homosexuals by the conservative religious people? Do you know where we can keep all that in order? Is with an iron fist. And that, over many decades, that's what the police force has become, an iron fist. It used to police our country by consent, because everybody was white and Christian. And there was no internal factions and people got along, and all they had to do was keep on the side of the good people to catch the bad criminals. It's more complicated than that now. Now they're trying to stop good Muslims from hating good Jews. They're trying to stop decent families of Pakistanis fighting with decent families of Indians, and they're trying to stop the persecution of Jews by the persecution of homosexuals by Christians, by Jews, by Muslims, by Sikhs, by everybody. And how can they do that? Well, they have to become a quasi-military force with a fist of steel. And I think that's where we are now. We've turned into Yugoslavia. It's the only way to run our inner cities is with an iron fist. And the reason why the police talk to you now like that is because they don't see you as a citizen. They see you as a problem.
Yeah.
And straight away, they've got to make sure you understand who's in charge of that conversation and who's in authority here right now. 50 years ago, that conversation would have been polite.
Correct.
And that officer would have realised you have the power in that conversation because that officer works for you. Things are flipped. That officer now has several seconds to make sure you will comply.
Yeah.
If you don't comply, we could have a riot here. I could lose control of this situation. Officers were never worried 50 years ago about losing control of the situation.
No.
Because the vast majority of the people
were law-abiding.
Were law-abiding and supported the police.
Yeah.
But our police force are in a position now where people like me now see them as the enemy.
And you shouldn't be in that position.
I shouldn't.
Yeah.
I was based in police stations for years.
Yeah.
I've worked with the police on and off for decades. I've won awards off Greater Manchester Police. I've trained police officers. I've worked police projects, award-winning projects. If they can turn me against them,
how bad is it?
Then how bad is it become?
Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking about that. You're right. When I was young, the concept of policeman was somebody who was civil to the public.
Yes.
I don't think that exists anymore. Do you remember Dixon of Dock Green?
Yeah.
Dixon of Dock Green, for our younger viewers, was a weekly show with Jack. What was he called? Jack? I can't remember his name now. Jack something like Jack Earnshaw or something.
Right.
And he used to, but at the beginning, he'd be walking down the street and he'd be tipping his hat to members of the public. Evening all.
Yeah.
Remember that? Evening all? That's what policemen...
Because he worked for them.
He worked for them. So he saw them as his charges,
Yes.
as people he was there to look after, not the enemy.
Yeah.
And that's how they see us now.
That's exactly how they see us now, the enemy, because to them you are the enemy.
Yeah.
Because you might be fighting with this group tomorrow. You might be causing racial hatred against that group. And they're now policing a hostile country because we're Yugoslavia.
Really interesting. Thank you, J-Mark, for that commentary. Very interesting. Please do that again. Now to the one that's far more closer to home.
Yes. So let's start.
Yes, I think if you could do.
Saturday morning. Most Saturday mornings I wake up a bit later, come downstairs, cup of tea, sit on a settee and try to catch up with some of my YouTube programmes I watch. My wife calls them my YouTube crap. Oh, you're going to watch YouTube crap? Yes, yes dear. Right, I'll do some washing. So she leaves me alone. So I turn on TV and my friend David from the Silver Fox Hot Takes YouTube channel appears and it says, I have been arrested. I thought, oh, what's this about? It can't be what I think. He's done it to attract attention.
It to clickbait,
yeah, I'll click on it, it's worked.
Yeah.
Bang, there we go. And he says, this is Saturday morning, he says, and the video's 13 minutes old. So he's only just released it. Just to let you know, people, that last night at 9:30, I was arrested by 3 police officers who come to my house. I was kept overnight in the station, in the cells, and I was interviewed for several hours. Because of my YouTube channel. And they've just released me. I've just managed to get home. I'm about to go to bed, but I wanted to do a video before I went to bed. They asked me about why do some of my videos talk about migration? That has to be a question from the police. Why are you talking about migration? Well, why can't I talk about migration? Second question was, you referred to a current German politician as Hitler. What's that about? Why? As Hitler. Everyone's called Hitler every day. I've got 19 posts on Twitter today where I'm Hitler. We've got British politicians calling Trump and Elon Musk Hitler.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. That's
And you're asking me about me calling... If we should be referring to anyone as like a Hitler, it should be German politicians.
Yeah, yeah. Gary Lineker does it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why are you asking me about that? And the sinister one was... They started asking him about several videos he did where he made reference to the potential murder of Keir Starmer. What he must have said, because he said, I used the words Starmer, lamppost, Keir, rope. And he didn't like those words.
I didn't know that.
He said, I used those words. So what is basically...
Why did he use those words?
He wouldn't go into it because he said, I'm waiting for legal advice before I get into it anymore.
Right.
Exactly.
But you watch his videos, so...
I only watch some of them.
Yeah, I'm not... I was going to say I watch them occasionally.
Yeah, I watch some of them. So what he's probably done is the flippant way is probably went, he needs stringing up.
Yeah.
That's a saying.
Mm.
That is not incitement to violence. That's not asking for the murder of the Prime Minister. But to be arrested for that on a Friday evening...
Yeah.
Kept overnight in the cells, which is the punishment.
Yeah.
That is the punishment.
Yeah, and it depends who you're in a cell with as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then he's released, pending further investigation. Absolutely shocking. My wife watched it because she likes him. And my wife was distressed.
Yeah, I bet she was.
Not because of him.
No, because of you.
She's thinking, are they going to come for you, Nick?
Yeah.
Are they going to come through our door? Are you going to be arrested?
Well, I think the Silver Fox, I was watching him and I think I said to you, this guy's really interesting, why don't you try and talk to him?
That's how I found him.
So, but when I watched him, I've never seen him say anything different to the kind of things you and I talk about. That's why...
I would say he's milder than us.
Yes, I think you're right. I think he's milder than us. So when I saw that, I immediately thought, whoa, they're coming for us now. This is going to start happening.
Good job you're moving house.
Yes. My new address will not be anywhere near any of my new. And you know, I was thinking, I've watched this guy, Silver Fox David, I don't know what his surname is. And he's a very reasonable, very measured commentator, social commentator. Talks about a lot of the things you and I talk about. The very idea that, and this is what is scary, he's got quite a big following, he's got 50 thousand followers, you're 32 now I think, 32,000. He's got 53,000 followers and my understanding is one person complained. So we've now reached a position where one person can complain either maliciously or deliberately and somebody like you or me or the Silver Fox can then end up in a jail cell overnight. And potentially longer than that.
It only ever takes one complaint.
Yes.
One complaint. And
yeah, but why should it though?
Yeah, because it's either worth investigating or it's not. The fact you get 50 complaints still doesn't change that dichotomy. It's either worth investigating or it's not. And someone deems, higher up than these officers, deems, yeah, we're going to investigate this. That sounds like a hate crime. That sounds like incitement to murder the Prime Minister. A load of bollocks, but they decided to waste 3 officers to arrest, you know, a man in his late 50s.
But if he did say that guy should be strung up, or Starmer should be strung up for that, you're right. That is just an expression.
It's an expression.
It's not saying, people, I urge you to get in your cars, head to London. I've got an address for you, 10 Downing Street. Go there and hang this. Hang this. It's not saying that. I guess. I've not seen the episode he's in. But I think that's quite shocking, isn't it?
Absolutely shocking. Coming on the back of what happened the week before with the burning of the Quran guy.
Yeah.
Now, this one isn't in Greater Manchester. I don't know where he lives. He lives down Midlands somewhere.
Lives.
It's just, what else can the police do?
I think it's at Reading Police Station. I think it was.
What else can the police do to annoy me?
Yeah.
And to turn me against them?
Yeah.
We're now arresting middle-aged YouTubers over comments online.
No, you're right. It's scandalous. It is scandalous.
Is there no crime going on a Friday night in Reading?
Yeah.
A Friday night.
Yes.
Now,
and how many coppers turned up for him?
3.
3 coppers.
3 coppers turned up.
Yeah. And we talked about this the other day. We talked about Joey Vartan, didn't we? How 4 coppers turned up at his front door, one jumped over the fence at the back, frightening his kids to arrest him over tweets.
Yeah. In those cases, when you want to arrest someone like that, which you shouldn't be doing, but let's say the police wanted to arrest him and interview him over his YouTube channel, it should be a letter to his house. Dear Mr. Silver Fox, due to this, would you please come to such a police station at such a time for a formal interview? Please bring a legal representative, and we'll see you there.
Yeah.
Because you know someone like him, me and you, are going to turn up at that interview. Because it'll say, and if you don't turn up, we'll come and arrest you.
Yeah. Because you'll turn up because you're a law-abiding citizen.
But first of all, the common sense of that straight away means I just save the Lord of Police resources. Because we don't have to go get him. He's going to turn up.
Yeah, but why do you need 5 people anyway?
Yes.
Or 4 people anyway? Why can't one person turn up? Say, I'm going to have to take you down to the station. Well, they've seen the videos of him. He's kind of a plump middle-aged bloke, isn't he? He's not going to launch an attack at them with a machete, is he?
No, but to be fair, most of Reading police are 3'7" little women. So even he can escape from them, or the 6 foot obese men. So, we don't have burly police officers anymore. But they could have invited him to the station.
Yes.
And that would have saved a load of police resources.
Yeah.
But no, the arrest is part of the punishment.
Yes.
That's what it is now. It's part of the punishment. They know this would have shaken him to his shoes, being arrested.
Yeah, of course.
Being kept overnight in a police station. He now will be doing videos, which he's still doing, but every time he's going to say something now controversial, he now goes,
he's going to be careful.
Should I?
Yeah.
He'll be self-censoring. I spoke to the Preston journalist about this the other day.
Yeah.
And he said he's found himself self-censoring now.
Really?
Because he doesn't want to be arrested.
This is the horrific thing, isn't it?
And this is what our police force is becoming now. It's becoming an occupational force.
Stasi. It's basically it's a Stasi force, isn't it? Basically, policing on behalf of the government for their ideologies is what we've got happening now, basically. And Nick, the most important question in all this, is this now going to change what you're going to say in...
Not a chance in hell. If they want me, come and get me. Come and get me.
So you've heard that, gentle viewers, and you're now aware that if any one of you makes a complaint about Nick, the police could end up coming around to his house, which is at number 20. It's like that joke, isn't it? There's a Puerto Rican guy on YouTube saying, "I'm really worried since Trump got in. I'm really worried about my mother-in-law. She's an illegal immigrant. I'm really nervous that she's going to be caught and take back. And she lives at number 26." And you'll find her behind the kitchen table. So yeah, that is quite horrific, and is worrying again, isn't it?
Where is this country going?
Yeah.
Things are improving in America. They're going to carry on getting worse here while we have this Labour government. Hopefully the next government might be better depending who they are, but this government is not for changing. This government will double down on everything, and it's going to carry on getting worse. And we've been talking about losing our free speech for a long time. Free Speech Union set up 4 years ago to tackle this, but the police are now a political organisation, and the people who work for the police, we're going to have to get to a stage where some police officers are going to have to resign publicly, are going to have to take one for the team, because standing up in court in 10 years' time now going, I was just following orders, that doesn't stand up in court. We saw that in the Nuremberg trials. Saying I was just following orders doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. Were you just following orders when you arrested Peter Lynch? A guy who'd done nothing, who ended up dying. Were you following orders when you arrested, I can't remember the name of that lady in Cheshire, and sent her to jail for 3 years for 2 tweets? Is that following orders?
Yeah.
Because it's not acceptable.
Well, concentration camp cards said the same. I shepherded them all into the gas chambers.
Yeah.
I was just following orders.
Yeah.
It doesn't hold wash anymore now.
Yeah.
We need some police officers resigning to the media, ripping up their badge, and saying, I'm resigning because this service isn't the service I joined. This service is the Gestapo, is the Stasi, is the Checker, and I'm throwing my career down the drain for the British people. We need some brave police officers doing that.
And those references to the Stars in concentration camps, I suppose what you're doing there effectively is comparing Keir Starmer to Hitler.
I am. And string him up.
You've got it there, folks. You've got the excuse to get on the phone to those coppers and get them.
That's what they did to Mussolini. They strung him up a lamppost with piano wire.
God, don't. Nick, don't.
We'll be the dock together, mate. We'll be in that dock together.
Please cut that out of this episode, for God's sake. Let's move on to our Stasi glorious Labour Party and our glorious leader. So, they're not just taking our free speech, they're also taking our democracy now, aren't they? Angela Rayner has postponed elections for 5.5 million Democratic voters. And that's a reality. It sounds almost like a joke, doesn't it?
If you'd have said this to me 6 months ago, that Labour were going to do this, I'd have said, come on, Lindsay, now. We know they're going to be crap.
Yeah.
We need to address the concerns. We stop making crap up and stop going down this rabbit hole of conspiracy. That's why I said to you 6 months ago.
Yeah, you would.
Roll on 6 months. They're cancelling elections for 5.5 million people.
Yeah.
But are going to expect those 5.5 million people to carry on paying their council tax.
Yes.
Where's the representation?
Yeah.
There's no taxation without we lost the Americas because of that.
Yes, correct.
They have a right to elect their leaders who are going to tax them.
Correct. Yeah.
And absolutely disgraceful.
It is scandalous, and they're dressing up with some sort of specious comment about, it's to do with reorganisation, blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
But you're right, what's happening here is the withdrawal of democracy, the democratic rights.
Yeah.
Now, those people to vote for the councillors who are managing their territories, their areas, basically. And I think as a result of that, some of these constituents have actually started to refuse to pay their which, and again, this is the way we do it, people. You've got to, when things like this happen, if everybody does it, they can't arrest all of us, can they?
No, they can't.
They can't arrest all of us. So I think it's just horrific that, and it's one of those things, when you see the Americans commenting on the UK, they must look at this and think, what the hell is going on out there?
Basket case.
Yeah.
We really are we've turned into a basket case. And because of social media, the world is seeing we are a basket case. The world now knows we allowed the rape of our children in this country. You can come here and rape our children and hardly anything will happen to you. You can come here and kill us. You can rob us, assault us and rape our women. And the odds are nothing will happen to you in this country now.
Yeah.
And if we mistreat you when we're arresting you, you'll get £100,000. And we can't deport you. And we are a joke. We're seen as a joke around the world. And I know for a fact other countries are laughing at us. Why wouldn't they? Look at the mighty British. Ruled the world. Biggest empire known to man. Conquered everywhere. Look at them now. Look at them now.
Yeah. Look at what they've been... And it's like you said, isn't it? If you go on the Home Office website as an immigrant, you'll get a list of what benefits you can claim.
That you can view from your country.
Yeah, from your country.
So you're...
From the comfort of your own house.
You're sat in Uganda going, I'll get a free house, free dentist, free NHS, free...
Driving lessons.
Education, driving lessons. Oh! PlayStation 5! Jammy, get the mule! We're going to England!
So we're having our democracy taken from us. Two-tier tier is now called four-tier tier because we've now found out that during COVID lockdown, when he was railing against, who was it, driving to Cummings?
Yeah, Cummings.
To, he had a voice coach who apparently he's had for 3 or 4. I mean, he's not done.
I want my money back. I'd want my money back.
This voice coach has not done a great job because he's one of the most droning, boring speakers ever to be strung up from a lamppost. So apparently the voice coach was travelling around London during lockdowns when you're not allowed to move from. Remember they do that stupid zone thing? You can go crossing zones.
Well, that's just to find him. Which house is he in today?
Very topical. Whether it's at his lover's house or his own house or whatever, driving around. But what's worse is, so this is now being reported as a crime by somebody.
Yeah.
The police aren't doing anything because it's out of the statute of limitations.
Yeah.
Is that true or is that just bollocks?
I think it's bollocks. I think it's bollocks. I think what they mean is so much time has gone past we don't want to look into it. I'm not sure we have things like statute of limitations on crimes.
Yeah, I don't think we do.
That's an American thing.
Yeah.
I don't think we have that. I think it was more to do with their policy on investigating COVID stuff, that we don't investigate anything now. Handy that, isn't it?
Yeah. There was an article, I think, in the Telegraph. Somebody described Starmer as the worst negotiator in British history. So what he's now doing, you sort of see Trump gathering momentum, doing all these things or whatever. So what Starmer's doing, just to kind of go with the flow, he's putting on a show of unity with the Danish PM over Greenland. I mean, is that it? Is that the best he can do for us?
Unity.
Yeah, standing shoulder to shoulder with the Danish PM, saying we're not going to let Trump take Greenland. Honest.
That's
in his voice coach voice.
That's exactly what weak men do. That's all they can do is show unity.
Yeah.
Real men fight back.
Yeah.
Real men stand strong. Real men achieve things. Weak men, all they can do is stand next to other weak men and complain about how unfair life is and the world is, and that's all he's doing, complaining. And
his choices and his people just get worse. Lord Hermer, who we've talked about before, the Attorney General.
No.
We now found, so we'll talk about Lamy and reparations in a minute. We now find out that he advised the Caribbean. So this is the Attorney General of the country, appointed by Keir Starmer, advised the Caribbean on reparations and how they can get reparations. So we've got the fox in the hen house, haven't we here? Or foxes in the hen house here.
Yeah.
In the most senior levels of government, we have people who hate this country.
Who are traitors. He's a
traitor. Who are traitors to our country, who are trying to take money from this country, who are trying to bring down this country. Because we also know that Hermer is the guy that advised the Chagos Islands on getting, leaving Britain and getting a load of money.
Yeah.
So he's putting these people around us. And then the final thing to top it off, one of his MPs, a guy called Andrew Gwynn, who I think you know.
I've met him once.
Yeah. He wrote on and this is how dim these people are. And you and I would do WhatsApp and all that sort of stuff, but there's certain things, even we're not even in the public, you're in the public space, I'm not. There's just certain things you don't put in a tweet or in a WhatsApp. He actually wrote in a WhatsApp that he hoped a pensioner who didn't vote Labour would die.
Yeah.
And then there's some other things, well, I can't remember what he said, but he's some anti-Semitic shit. And then another MP associated with that has also been sacked as well, because he's in the WhatsApp group as well. So you get a total insight into the nature of these people, don't you? Starmer is visibly an idiot. He's got people around him like Lord Hermer, Andrew Gwynn, David Lammy, who David Lammy has now headed over to the Caribbean to open talks on reparations for that. These people, they just want to destroy us.
They do. First of all, David Gwynn. These were jokey texts.
Andrew Gwynn.
These were jokey texts within a group of Labour. You're right there, mate. Can't believe you missed that big mouth of yours. This was a WhatsApp group with other Labour politicians, Labour councillors and stuff like that, and MPs. And from what I've heard and from the bit I've read, it was banter, it was insulting, but the big mistake was, if you're an MP and you're in any group, how you think that's going to remain private? Because let's say there's 30 people in that group, you only have to upset one of them.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, all those messages have been screenshot and sent to the press. Yeah. That's what happened.
Yeah.
He's an idiot for thinking that.
Yeah.
But then it also shows you a little bit of his character, that he would, in a jokey way, I know there were jokes, but there's truth in jokes. He held those people in his area in disdain.
In contempt. Yeah.
In contempt. It was like, because you don't vote for me, I don't care about you. It was all about bins. She was complaining about her bins.
It's quite right.
And she said, I didn't vote for you, but
can you sort the bins out?
Yeah. And he's now joking about, well, hopefully I should be dead by the next election. And other stuff he was saying there. Do we think our politicians are perfect? No, we don't. Should you say these things? No, you shouldn't. Would you say these things to your closest friend in the pub over a pint? Yeah, you probably would. Would you write it down as evidence forever?
Yeah.
That's an idiot who does that one.
Yeah.
It just shows the calibre, the intelligence and the character of all these Labour MPs who have been telling us for years, evil Tories, evil Tories. And I tell you what, if this was a Tory doing this, it'd have been a bigger story.
Oh God,
if this was one of the Reform MPs, it would have been a bigger story. Yeah. But it hardly It didn't really. It got in the papers and stuff, but it died the same day. The story died the same day.
No, the Reform guys have to be whiter than white. It was interesting last night, because obviously there were quite a lot of people there at the Reform standing as councillors, basically. Simon Moorhead said, listen guys, check your social media, go back, check everything, delete anything that looks inappropriate. He said, because once you stand for reform, he said the hordes will descend. Yeah. The media, the Labour Party, they'll descend on you, and they will go through everything, basically. I mean, they'll be spoiled for choice with you, if you ever stood at the...
No point me deleting anything. It's all out there. I'm sure people have screenshot everything I've done. But I can defend everything I've ever said, so I'm not that worried. But then going back to David Lammy and the reparations, this is an insult to all of us. It's an insult. Reparations is an insult to the British people. In 2015, the British people finally paid off the loan that we took out 200 years ago to free the slaves in the British Empire. 2015, that means
Who
almost...
Who did we borrow it from?
Banks.
America.
Well, banks.
Oh,
yeah. Wouldn't have been America. America wasn't that strong at that time then. America had to borrow money off British banks to buy Louisiana off the French. But everyone in this country alive today, most of us alive today, paid reparations because we contributed our taxes to pay that bill. Yeah. Because it only ended in 2015. We don't owe black people or descendants of black African slaves anything. We never have, because we never captured any of them slaves. The people who made them slaves were black Africans. Black Africans captured their neighbours and sold them into slavery. Not because of the white people. They've been doing it for tens of thousands of years before white man had even got to Africa. That was their cultural norm, slavery. And we bought some of them as slaves. And then the British, but mainly the English started this. The English then said, do you know what? Slavery is unchristian. We're all created in the image of God. How can we have some as slaves? And it was the English and the British who then, through many years and many decades of fighting, started the process of ending slavery. First of all, across the British Empire, and then secondly, trying to do it across the world. We spent a fortune patrolling the high seas. We spent a fortune funding the the West African Squadron to patrol African coastlines. And then, because we ended slavery in the British Empire, we couldn't just take people's legal property off them, because under the English law, those slaves were property and people owned them and bought them legally. So the only way out of it was to buy their freedom. And we bought this freedom of every slave in the British Empire. That is an amazing thing. If black descendants of slavery in the Caribbean actually want reparations, they need to look at the royal families in Africa. Because it was the kings and tribal leaders in Africa who made all the money from slavery. That's where reparations need to be looked at.
You need to go and see David Lammy.
I do.
Other ways that they're trying to ingratiate themselves with us, this new party. The Chagos Islands deal has gone from 9 billion to 18 billion now. Which is just endearing us to it more.
He's a hell of a negotiator. Do you want these islands with 9 million? Yeah. Okay, we'll give you 18
billion.
Okay, we'll give you 18 billion as well.
All right, you've got me.
Okay.
18 billion. Yeah, no problem. Angela, thick as a mince Rayner, as I call her. Of course, she's highly knowledgeable about all sorts of things. So she's now being drafted in to define what Islamophobia is going to be for this new racial, whatever frick it is, bill.
I know exactly what she's going to say. It's everything that we say Islamophobic.
Yeah. I think that's what it's going to be, isn't it?
Any criticism is going to be Islamophobic.
Yeah. And that is a scary thing, because that's a law that's coming now, isn't it, basically?
Yeah. But she wants the votes. They know they need to win back that Muslim bloc vote, because they're losing it. And people like her, Jess Phillips, the West Streeting, they've hung on to their seats.
Lisa Nandy.
They've hung on by several hundred seats.
Yeah.
And they've lost thousands because
the
Muslims block vote have gone to Guards of Independence and stuff like that.
Well,
so they know they've got to win them back.
I don't know if you know, but there's a new party starting up. I think
Yep.
it's called the Partnership of Brotherhood or something.
Yeah.
And it's led by that crazy lawyer who tried to defend the...
those two.
And they're setting up a separate party. This is a new party.
Yeah.
And the part of their spiel was, because the Labour Party aren't representing our interests anymore.
Huh?
So I think that is peeling... I think that's a good thing.
I do.
I think it's a good thing that they're peeling away into their own parties now, because I think it'll take away that from Labour and gives more opportunity, I think, for reform, hopefully, to come forward. I think they finally realised their error of their ways with taking the heating allowance from the pensioners. And the reason I think they have recognised that is they've awarded a pay rise of 6.6% to all prisoners.
And it's pay rises to prisoners.
And it's like, hang on a minute, we've treated these pensioners awfully. What can we do to restore the balance? I know, let's give a pay rise to all our prisoners. All 85,000 of them.
Let's say...
By the way, the number of prisoners in the country is almost equivalent to the attendance at Old Trafford. Right. This is a matter of interest. You can remember that for future.
Right, I will do.
Yeah.
Imagine
everybody at Old Trafford.
Yeah, we're prisoners.
That's how many prisoners we've got in the country.
A lot of criminals in that ground. Let's say for a moment prisoners deserve a pay rise. That's a given.
Can I just say, Nick, I didn't even know they were paid any money. Why would prisoners be paid money anyway?
For some of the work they do in the prisons. But
just make them do the work anyway.
We'll talk about it in a minute. I've got ideas on that. But let's say for a moment prisoners deserve a pay rise. Let's say that's a given. We know that to be true.
What, that they deserve a pay rise?
Yeah.
All right. So you're saying you want me to accept that?
Yeah. So accept that as a starting point. Mm. Why would a government that's tanking in the polls, that's losing MPs over sleaze, that's freezing pensioners, that's crashing the economy, that has the worst performing Prime Minister of all time according to the polls, where are they finding the time to look at prisoners and what they're being paid? Mm. It's if we want to know why this government is failing, it's because of a million decisions like this. Of looking at something that no one in the country cares about. Yeah. And in fact, the most people in the country would say, we're paying prisoners.
Yes, exactly.
And they're spending time, energy, resources, money, and increasing our national debt to pay them more. It blows my mind.
It beggars belief, doesn't it?
It blows my mind that we
keep
having these stories.
All the things they would focus on, it would be that, wouldn't it? You know, It's just like, if I was them, I'd give prisoners a pay cut. If you want to send a message that you're heading in the right direction, give them a pay cut, but...
This is how we deal with prisoners. Prisons should make money. Prisons should make a profit because we have slave labour in those prisons and they're costing us a fortune. Prisons should be dealing with slave labour and they should be paying money into the coffers of the government to compensate for our criminal justice system. But prisons themselves shouldn't cost us a penny, and we can work how to do that. We don't pay prisoners anything. What we do is we have different grading of prisoners, and depending how good they are and what they're earning, depending on what benefits they get. So you only want to be in a cell with 2 people, right? Well, you need to do these jobs, and that earns you the right to have a cell with 2 people. You want access to a PlayStation? Well, you need to be earning this amount of credit and this amount of work and these amount of that. We have an incentive system because that incentive system subconsciously trains them to behave themselves to get what they want. Now, if you translate that once they get released back in society, that helps them play the game. As in, if I'm a good boy, I get these benefits of society, and it's a way of conditioning them into that. But paying prisoners to do certain. I mean, they don't get paid like 20, 30 quid an hour. They're getting paid, £1.30 an hour, stuff like that, which goes into the kitty they can buy biscuits with and all that. I get why they're doing it, but the whole concept is wrong.
I think I worked out the pay rise they've got is equivalent to the annual benefit to them is equivalent to the heating allowance that's been taken off the pensioners.
It's going to be 1.5 billion a year.
No, per person it's about 300 quid.
Right.
So what I'm saying is per prisoner they're getting about the equivalent of what?
Right. Disgraceful.
It is disgraceful.
Absolutely disgraceful. And why anybody in that party thinks this is a policy we can announce. This is something we need to spend. Even if the time is 4 seconds, that's all it takes. Well, I'd rather that 4 seconds be spent somewhere else.
Yes. Yeah.
Not on prisoners.
Just, think somebody would just say, look, just leave that. Leave that, right? Look at the papers. Let's just leave
We have
that.
enough shit going on.
Yes.
We've already released 1,000 prisoners who came out, went into luxury cars and started thanking Keir Starmer live on TV. We don't need to be...
But they'll be complaining. They'll be going, hang on a minute. They've all had a pay rise. If they'd left me in there, I would have had that pay rise.
And being a criminal's a job, you know.
I know, exactly. It's a hard job. You've got to get your pay. I think
prison officers now will be going, you've given them a pay rise. I want a pay rise.
Yeah. So Andrew Bailey, the Governor of the Bank of England, has warned that dire public sector productivity, and I don't know the numbers, but I'm going to have them next week for you. I think it's down 18% or something. Dire public sector productivity is dragging down the economy. We know that.
Yeah.
We know 20% of the workforce is now employed by the public sector, and we know that they are 20% something less efficient than they were before COVID. Yeah. It's just bloody chaos.
And they were crap before COVID.
I mean, it's a hard measure.
Yeah.
Ed Miliband, I think, is kind of starting to listen because he's just scrapped a job offer, a £70,000 a year job offer, and this job. So this job is described as the office attendance and ways of working lead, right? So this is basically the bloke or the woman or probably the disabled lesbian who's in charge of, what did you call them last week? Bolivian midget, was it? I can't remember.
Brazilian 12.
Brazilian.
Yeah, that was a sex game. The
Brazilian midget, they said they're the best. This is a disabled lesbian basically who would be just ensuring that people are working from home effectively. That's what it is.
Hi Dorothy. Hi, yeah. Are you on your settee? Yeah, okay. How's Trisha? Yeah. I'm watching Trisha. Yeah. I'll catch you later. Yeah, tick. Yep, she's working. Just like on your settee.
£70,000 a year, that job. But thankfully, it's been scrapped. Whether they're starting to wake up.
Was that job working from home?
Possibly. Possibly. So I think there are some positive signs. You know, the scrapping of that job.
I don't think that's a positive sign. I think that's because he's got a huge issue at the moment in the cabinet with Rachel Reeves, because Rachel is saying to all the ministers, the economy's tanking. We can't go back. You all need to start saving money, and so I think all the ministers are being forced to start scrapping some stuff because we need the money, and that's only 70 grand. But he's probably thinking that makes me look a bit better.
Yeah.
It's not that they believe in any of this. They just know they haven't got the money they thought they had.
Yeah. There are some positive signs, but bear in mind, I'm also the man who said I was optimistic about Labour coming to power when they started.
You did?
So we've now been shown multiple times how crap that
yeah. And I remember saying to you, give it a year. I was just as mental as you. Give it a year. It went down within weeks.
Starmer is apparently now pushing a large offshore oil field to be approved, and also nuclear stations. Have you heard this?
I haven't, but yeah, it's...
Wes Streeting has described as daft that NHS staff have been boasting of anti-whiteness. So there was a Dr. Florencia Gisbertha, you can guess from her name what her ethnicity was. She put an advert out boasting that she trained for anti-whiteness. So even Wes Streeting started to say the diversity thing has gone too far in the NHS. So there are some little positive signals there.
Yeah, they're little buds are there. I'm not sure if it's because they believe in it or because it's all about perception and they're trying to win over some of the middle of the road voters because I know they're in dire straits. I'm not sure which way that is.
Something that's positive for you and an option for you. Mentally ill people can now access assisted dying, Nick. There you go.
That was always going to be the next step.
Yeah.
That was all, and because every country it's been in, that is always the next step.
Yeah.
Mentally ill people.
Yeah.
And to guard against that, there's going to be a new panel looking at the mentally ill people to make sure they're not suicidal. That's what they said. They're setting up a panel of doctors to ensure that the mentally ill people who want assisted dying are not suicidal.
All right, we've determined you're not suicidal. You can go and kill yourself. We were worried because we thought you were suicidal, but actually no.
You just wanted to die.
You're fine. So go and kill yourself. You're fine. No problem at all. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, looking at all this stuff on Labour, I was reflecting on taxation. And you and I have talked about it before, and I've talked about the fact Dubai, Florida, income tax is zero and all that sort. And we're seeing Trump shifting towards no tax. So I was looking up about the people who write about this stuff, and apparently there's I can't remember the terminology of these guys, but there's a guy called Murray Rothbard, a philosopher or whatever, he's dead now. And this statement, I think, sums up where we are now in this country, and it's particularly relevant with Rayner taking away 5.5 million Democratic votes. Taxation is theft, purely and simply, even though it is theft on a grand and colossal scale which no acknowledged criminals could hope to match.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we've got in this country now.
Do you know why income tax started?
I think you've told me, but enlighten me. If I said yes, then I could move on to the next question, couldn't I? No, I don't, Nick.
Income tax started as a temporary tax to fund the Napoleonic War.
Right.
200 years ago.
Right, okay.
Temporary tax.
We need it taken off then, don't we?
A much fairer system would be to scrap personal taxes, and you tax businesses, and you tax purchases.
Yeah.
That would affect the rich more than the poor.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because we were in Wales on Friday. We went to a shop where my wife likes to shop, and the lady there, for some reason, she knows I'm involved in business and stuff, but she kind of cornered me while I was having a cup of tea in a little cafe and said, "How's things? How's business?" Well, I said it's slow. Things are slowing down a bit now. She said, "Oh well, we need to do something. It's a terrible situation." And I said, "Well, we're paying a lot of tax." And I mentioned there's a thing in Wales now, so we've got a place in Wales. And in Wales, if you don't rent out your place in Wales, you get something like 250% corporate council tax. Yep. Which is, so I'm now paying more council tax in Wales than I pay in Manchester. And I was saying, this tax, we're getting nothing for it. And she said, "Well, yeah, but how, this idea that you can," I said, so I mentioned that, we've got a place in Dubai, a business in Dubai, and they don't get income tax. I couldn't believe this once, and I asked for a pay slip of one of the guys. I think I've told you this story before, and it had the gross salary. So we all see gross salary on our pay slip. And they had net salary, and the gross salary, which was 3,000 AD, was the same as the net salary. I was like, "What?" I said, "That can't be right." And he's like, "No, that's it." So in Dubai, those places, they do exactly what you described. They tax on goods purchased, basically. It's equivalent of VAT. It's basically VAT, basically. So the more you spend, the more you pay.
Tax you pay.
But it's your choice, Nick.
But that's what I was going to say. You have control over your money.
Correct.
You have control over what tax you pay.
Yes.
And if you don't want to pay tax, you don't buy anything. If you can't afford to buy anything, then you pay less tax.
Yes.
And then if you want to splash out on a more expensive car, well, you pay more tax on that compared to a cheap car. It gives the power to the person.
Yeah. And it works.
Yeah.
So there's no income tax in Dubai. There's no corporation tax. Things are more expensive by their very nature, obviously, but you can also live cheaply as well there if you want. And don't forget, there's thousands of Indian workers there who live very cheaply and have a good life. But that's a society where you're not being ripped off by the government for nothing, which is what's happening here in this country. Trump, we know he's heading that way, but I want to talk about Trump if that's okay, because he's just doing so much great stuff, isn't he? So just some of the stuff. We talked about this last week, but we missed it out because of the damage to the microphone. employees at federal agencies were given until 5 p.m. on the same day to remove pronouns from their emails, or they will be sacked.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thousands of military who were discharged for refusing jabs have been reinstated.
Excellent.
And I think you said they got the back pay.
They're going to get back pay, and so they should.
There's a great video of a lady called Liu Lijun, who's a Chinese national, who works at UCLA, studies at UCLA, who spent all the time organising pro-Palestinian rallies.
Yeah.
There's a great video of being arrested and deported.
Yeah.
And the look on her face is unbelievable, because she's like, I don't really understand what's going on here. But why not?
Yeah.
Why? That is exactly what should be happening to these people. Agitators from a foreign country sent back to their country, basically.
And over the next few days, it was reported that lots of foreign students in America are deleting their social media apps because of all the crap that's on it. Because they're scared of being deported. They've started wiping their social media apps.
Oh, I hadn't heard that. That's fantastic. Yeah. He's imposed tariffs on Canada, Mexico and China.
Yeah.
However, the tariffs were paused on Mexico after Mexico sent thousands of Mexican troops
to the
border to stop people crossing into America. And border crossings, and this is a hell of a statistic, Nick. Border crossings of Mexicans going into America are down 93%.
In 3 weeks.
Unbelievable.
93% in 3 weeks. Where we've had years of politicians telling us nothing can be done to stop the flow. He stopped 93% in 3 weeks.
Yeah, and this is what you've always said. Yeah. You've always said if you ever got into power, you would stop immigration instantly. Yeah, and it can be done.
Can be done.
We've seen it.
Yeah.
We've now actually seen it.
You just need the balls to do it.
93%. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I wonder whether the people in the mainstream, what I call the middle ground, are actually aware of this stuff, or do you think the media here is keeping this information from them?
They know about it in America. The middle ground in America know all about it.
Yeah.
They're cheering it.
Yeah.
In this country, no.
The Panama Canal has agreed to let US Navy ships pass through now for free, basically. So I think they were restricting before, that's fine. Argentina is now withdrawing from the World Health Organization. But one of the biggest stories, and again, I don't think people in this country are hearing all about it, there's an organization called USAID in America.
I never heard of it until this stuff went on.
So Musk went in there with three of his, like a bunch of 5 young, the guys he went in with are like 22 years old, the young guys, and they basically closed it down. Yeah. And this place has been given money to millions of places, including Tony Blair, including the BBC, Politico, which is a media thing, which basically is left-wing media, has been given $8 million by this. So there was an article by a senator saying the American taxpayers are giving money to Afghanistan, to Yemen, to Syria. The USAID has 10,000 employees, and every year they give away $40 billion. Electric vehicles in Vietnam, a transgender clinic in India, 1.5 million to a Serbian LGBT group, 164 million to support radical organisations around the world, basically. 2 million for a sex change in Guatemala, which of course is 20 million to produce a new Sesame Street show in Iraq.
That was my favourite one, that one. You can imagine a cookie monster in Iraq.
$10 million to meals to an Al-Qaeda-linked terrorist group called the Nusra Front. 7.9 million to a project will teach Sri Lankan journalists how to avoid binary gendered language. And including in there money to Tony Blair, quite a lot to Tony Blair, and to Chelsea Clinton.
Yeah.
So
just pure propaganda, propagating this crap across the world, trying to buy influence, trying to get this woke virus in other countries that don't have it. I mean, 40 billion a year they've saved now. That's 40 billion.
It's 40 billion just like that.
Yeah.
Which is a massive amount of money.
Yeah.
There was an interview with a USAID employee by one of the mainstream media, and she was saying, oh yeah, these guys turned up, we didn't know what to do, so we took down our pride flags, and I took out any incriminating books. Why have they got pride flags and incriminating books at work anyway? But they didn't realise, they're so thick, these people, and they're so indoctrinated,
No.
they don't actually realise that isn't what they should be doing, do they?
Well, according to their bosses, it is what they should be doing. So this was the culture of those organisations.
There's also a great picture of Trump surrounded by young girls. And he's signing an executive order which is to ban trannies in women's sports, basically men in women's sports. And anybody who said that Trump does not support women's rights cannot say that any longer, because there's 3 executive orders he's released. One is there's only 2 genders.
Yeah.
The second one is banning, I think, surgeries, is it trans surgeries?
Yeah.
And the third one is stopping men from competing in women's sports. And that picture, I think nobody can now argue that Trump doesn't support or care about women.
They'll still argue that. It doesn't matter. You know, you've got Kemi Badenoch, you know, a black leader of the Tory party, who's called racist every day. So it doesn't matter what the right do, they're still going to be called the same names. Trump will still be called the same names, regardless of what he does.
Yeah. Viktor Orban, is he the president of Hungary?
Yeah.
He said everyone in Brussels can see the Trump tornado coming.
Yeah.
They think that they can get away from it.
Yeah.
They won't.
Yeah.
Is that what you think now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think your views, Nick, have changed on Trump, haven't they? Because I think you initially thought it won't make any difference to us what happens.
No, look, you keep saying that.
I'm going to go back and find the video.
You misremember. What I said was him being elected will have no direct impact on the UK. But he'll have lots of secondary impact on the UK, as in what he does there will filter over here. So him being president can't change anything in the UK because he doesn't control the UK. Labour government don't like him, won't talk to him, he's not in partnership with them. That's what I meant. But then I did say, but what he does there will filter through. He'll have a lot of impact across UK and Europe. It's all secondary impact. Still very useful, still very important.
I'm going to go back and find
Make sure you do.
I'm going to go back and find that
That's
video.
3 times now you've misquoted me.
Can any of our gentle viewers find the video where he just basically says Trump will have no impact? He's looking to turn Gaza into the Riviera of the Middle East.
Yeah.
I mean, he is so crazy, Trump, in a way, that when he says these things, it's hard to argue. Because that is so off the wall in terms of a concept. I mean, what he's basically saying is we're going to turn Gaza into somewhere like Dubai or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like...
And he's going to deport all the Palestinians.
Yeah.
That's what he said. Now, Trump's great at this. What he does is he says a very outrageous thing, and then when he negotiates with you, what he then says then sounds quite sensible, so you take it. Because he started off right over there, and suddenly now it's like, oh, he's come down a bit. Yeah, well, we'll take that, Mr. Trump. So we don't know what he's negotiating, and we don't know if he's got a plan behind this. You know, how many million Palestinians is there in Gaza? He could say to different countries, you know, you support the Palestinians. Why don't you take 100,000 and we'll fund you to take them, and then the Gaza Strip is left over and we run it. But you can buy countries. Yeah,
you can. My favourite executive order, which I think he signed this week, is getting rid of paper straws. and that is just such a fantastic thing, because I think I came here the other day and I was complaining because I'd got a McDonald's and they'd replaced it with a paper freaking cup. So hopefully the plastic tops are coming back to McDonald's, and that is a fantastic thing. And as he said, sharks aren't bothered about plastic when they're munching their way through the sea to Trump. And I thought, yeah, he's right. Sharks aren't bothered about a bit of plastic, are they? So I thought that was a perfect explanation for it at the time.
Plastic straws was just one of those virtue signalling things.
Yeah.
From, again, the Tory government.
Yeah.
Who wanted to look like they were, you know, protecting the environment. And the truth is, plastic straws in this country do not end up in the seas in the South Pacific. So we don't have an issue with throwing away plastic straws in the seas. That's all other countries in the South Pacific do that. It's got nothing to do with us. But it was just pathetic virtue signalling, which put on more costs to businesses.
Correct. There are still some crazy Democrats out there. There's a lady called Lori Pahutsky who has actually got herself sterilised because of Trump.
This.
And I think that is a real tragedy. I mean, she's clearly mentally ill.
But at least she's not passing her genes on.
That's true, yeah.
So those,
true, yeah.
sometimes you need a little bit of chlorine
What do they
in
call
the
it?
gene pool.
Darwin, evolution, yeah. I thought that was really quite sad.
It's sad. It is sad because, she's a woman. She's not going to experience motherhood now. This is self-abuse, all because the left-wing nutcases have convinced her that he's the devil, and you don't want to bring a child into the world because it's run by the devil now. And there'll be other people committing suicide, because they think Hitler's taken over America. Some people are very broken, and it doesn't take much to push them over the edge.
There's a great video of two white female Democrats. I think I sent it to you. I don't know if you had a chance to watch it. And they're holding up a sign saying "Trust Black Women." So a guy goes to interview them. He's obviously, he's obviously quite clever. He says, "What's this about trusting black women?" Yeah, well, we need to trust black women. They know what they're doing. We do blah blah. He said, "Did you know that millions of black women voted for Trump?" And one of the white women went to the other white woman, "Did they?" He went, "Oh yeah, you did. She did. Oh well, they
don't trust those ones."
Yeah. She said, "Oh well, they needed to be, they haven't connected the dots." And they said, "Oh, is it white women that can show them how to do that? It's because they're a bit stupid. Yeah. Is that what you're saying?" He said, "Well, no, we're not saying that. It's just that they don't know. They're not voting for what's good for them. Oh, but you know what's good for them, do you? So you can educate them, can't you? Because they're a bit thick, these white women. So we should trust black women apart from these stupid ones who don't know what they're doing, and then they need to be told like white women, and these two women are just like, and it sums up exactly the way they think. They don't know any black women. They probably don't understand. They believe black women have no agency or no independent thought. They categorise people. They lump people.
They've never thought about it. That's all. It's a nice sign, and we're going to get some good points off our friends for that. Now, should we trust black women? There's a continent called Africa.
Yeah.
Full of black women.
Yeah.
It's a shithole.
Yeah.
So how are they doing there?
Well, I think the reality of that is you can trust some black women.
Of course you can.
And you can't trust some black women. And you can trust some white women and you can't trust some other white women.
They're individuals, aren't they?
Correct.
Every individual.
That's the point. But when the hilarious thing was when he said, "Do you know millions of black women voted for Trump?" They went, "Did they?"
I saw a little video the other day. I forgot the woman's name, but same. She go around interviewing people, and there was some Antifa woman got a mask on, and she's got her shoulder sign up, and the masked woman shouts to the presenter, "You smell of shit," and the woman says to her, "I'm sorry, you're wearing a mask. I think what you're doing is smelling your breath." And this woman went, I didn't know what to say next.
They're brilliant, aren't they? And then just finally on Trump, Bernie Ecclestone, who I've never really had much time for.
The racing guy.
Yeah, the racing. He's literally about that big. He's about 2 foot tall. There's an article by him in the Telegraph or the Times, and he said Donald Trump is the best thing that could happen to the world.
What?
And I thought, yeah, that's a great thing, really. And he's a really interesting character, this Bernie Ecclestone guy. Gone from nothing to being a billionaire, but a really interesting guy. And he was, I think I sent it to you because I was conscious of your age. In fact, you're very similar, but you're about the same height and about the same age. And he said, when I got to 80, I thought I've got maybe 4 or 5 years left. But he said, now I'm at 90, I'm feeling... And I thought, that's the spirit, isn't it? What a fantastic spirit in life to have. When he was 80, he was like, oh, I've only got 4 or 5 years left. Like most people, when they get to 60, think I've got 4. He's like, I've got 4 or 5 years left at 80. And it's kind of interesting that he sees Donald Trump as a kind of real hero. Donald Trump is now nearly 80, 79 I think now. And the energy he has and the sheer volume of work he's doing at that age is a lesson to us all, really, isn't it?
It is. I can't see him keeping it up over 4 years. But he knows his legacy will be made at the beginning of his term. He has to go for broke now. And he's got lots of help and support, and good medical staff, good diet. He doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke. So he's got a good diet anyway.
And I'll finish this episode. Is it episode 80? On your favourite subject, COVID vaccines.
Again, will you let this
go? The reckoning is coming, Nick.
God.
People like you, the reckoning is coming. Tom Slater, of Spike, said we need a reckoning around the lockdowns. Piers Morgan has admitted he's completely wrong for pushing the COVID vaccine. We're now finding out. Did you have Moderna or Pfizer, by the way?
The one that was based on the old technology.
Oh, you're right. You're okay then. Pfizer you had.
Yeah.
So Moderna recipients have a 50% higher death rate than Pfizer recipients.
Yeah.
So, although Pfizer recipients also have a higher death rate, and they're now linking the Pfizer vaccine, which is the one you had, to neurological illnesses, which could explain a lot.
I was like this before COVID. I've always been slightly mental.
And I think that kind of brings us to...
But serious on that point.
Yeah.
We do need a reckoning. The government overstepped its mark over COVID.
Yeah.
They became an authoritarian government. They sacked people for not taking a vaccine. They never should force people to do medical procedures or take vaccines. They treated us appallingly. And all we've got out of it is basically lessons will be learned. No, I don't want lessons learned. I want some people in jail. People crossed the line. I want to know who crossed the line, who made those decisions. We know now that a lot of the information was just made up on the spot. 2 meters away from each other and masks and there was no science behind any of it. A reckoning has to happen, or this could be repeated again on another thing that happens down the line.
Yeah.
It's only when and it's always politicians. It's only when politicians know that there'll be a reckoning in the future that keeps them on the straight and narrow today.
Yeah.
Because if they know all my predecessors always get away with it, so I'm going to take some chances now because I'll get away with it. That's what causes that sort of behaviour.
Yeah. It was interesting last night at the Reform rally or whatever it was. There was a guy who runs care homes, and he was saying as a result of this enforcement of vaccines for care home workers, he said we lost 50% of our staff population basically.
What did we have to do then? Immigrants.
Yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah. So it's part of the problem as well. Yeah. So I think you're right. I think that.
And then where did all those people go? Who got sacked?
Don't know.
Oh, don't.
All right, on the benefits. Which we talked about before.
All these decisions have knock-on impacts to everything else that's going wrong with the country.
It's a really good point. That's a really good point. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. Please thumbs up, like, subscribe.
Many people are watching and not subscribing, and if you subscribe it helps YouTube to share our videos far and wide.
And please buy the best-selling book,
Best-selling?
England, My England, by Mr. Nick Buckley, MBE.
Thank you much.